Good evening and welcome back to another Fantasy Football Fix daily price change predictions video. My name is FPL Nacho and this is a series where we discuss potential FPL price changes to help you build that essential team value. Now in this video, we have potentially our first Spurs asset rising in price, so stay tuned to see who that might be. And a popular mid-price forward potentially rising in price as well. I think a lot of managers are going to be interested in this fella over the next fall, so be sure to check that one out, guys. And of course, all the information is taken from fantasyfootballfix.com, the leading FPL platform. So if you want to improve your rank or win those mini leagues, be sure to head over to fantasyfootballfix.com, link in the bio, or download the free app and get those push notifications. So guys, without further ado, let's get started. Okay guys, as always, we're going to be looking at the Fantasy Football Fix price predictor ahead of tonight's potential FPL price changes. As you can see guys, it is a tasty potential night of price changes. Now, I have decided to put these players in our watch list section over on the price predictor just because there's quite a few happening tonight. So don't worry, I have picked out the players that are predominantly the ones to talk about, and we're going to quickly cover the ones that are potentially rising and falling in price. So first up, Ivan Toney of Brentford. We have him over the 100% threshold to rise in price, currently rising at 2% per hour. And with those coming four fixtures for Brentford, a very popular player. So potentially rising to 6.7 million tonight, and rightly so with those fixtures coming up. Smith Rowe, another popular player, potentially rising to 5.7 million tonight. Again, crossed over that 100% threshold on that progress bar. So we are expecting him to rise in price tonight. And Phil Foden of Man City, another popular player, obviously blanked last game week. He was all the rage the game week before, but clearly managers are keeping the faith and are liking what they're seeing, as he again is rising by 0.5% per hour, expected to rise in price tonight to 8.3 million. And can you believe it, guys? People don't actually own Mo Salah right now, and he is expected to rise in price again. 0.2% progress per hour. Not as much obviously as the previous four that I mentioned, but he could be possibly going to 13 million, which is going to be a massive price, but again, justifying it right now as a perma captain to some managers' opinion. But the big one right now, guys, and it is potentially the first Spurs asset to rise in price, and that is going to be Son, who is just beaten Kane to that first price rise under Conte. And obviously right now at 10.2 million, he could be rising to 10.3 million tonight. Now, he's right on the cusp of the progress bar. Again, things can change during the night, so you have to make sure you head over to fantasyfootballfix.com to check out our price predictor. But rising at 1% progress per hour, who knows what's going to happen in the Europa League. We need to see things under Conte, see what team he's putting out. But managers are liking what they're seeing, and he could be rising in price tonight. So do not miss out on that one, guys, if it is looking likely to rise. Last one that's looking likely to rise is Raul Jimenez. Again, hasn't crossed the threshold here. He's at 1.5% per hour, only at 92.5 right now. So again, this one is going to be close. If he continues at the way that he's progressing, he will rise, but this one might not happen necessarily. And some notable price fallers, Kevin De Bruyne, but again, at 3.5% ownership, hasn't really been the big standout player that we hoped for right now. Injuries have hindered him, so that one might not affect many managers. But I think the big one really, Ben Rama at West Ham. Few poor returns of late, obviously started the season so well. He could be potentially falling to 6.4 million by tonight, over that 100% threshold and falling at 1.2%. I think a lot of managers are looking at those cheaper options, the likes of Smith Rowe's, or even going up into the likes of the Phil Foden. So as I mentioned, guys, that is the main sort of cusp of players there. We're going to be touching on Ivan Toney and looking a little bit at Son, obviously ahead of what is proving to be an exciting time at Spurs. Right guys, first up we're going to be looking at Ivan Toney, and I've brought up the player comparison matrix over on Fantasy Football Fix as I want to compare him against two other popular forwards right now in the game, and that is going to be Raul Jimenez, who again I mentioned potentially might be rising in price tonight, and Armando Broja at Southampton, who currently locked in price because of that injury, and of course only at 5 million. So we've got a bit of a difference in prices here. We have the cheap budget option in Broja, the mid-price in Toney, and slightly a bit more expensive in Raul Jimenez, obviously scoring in the previous game week, in game week 10. Now, I've decided to look at their underlying stats from game week 1 to game week 10, and decided to pick out some of the underlying stats like goals, FPL assists, touches in the opposition box, and shots, for example. And the reason I brought this up is because I just want to compare all three of them, see if there's any value to go for, and especially the likes of Ivan Toney, where a lot of managers are going in on him. So first and foremost, we can see that the reason I've decided to filter it by showing average per game is because of the minutes that all three have played. Ivan Toney 900 minutes, Jimenez 811, but Broja only on 243. So such a small sample size. If I match him up against the other two in his totals, then he probably isn't going to be an accurate representation. And it's worth noting as well, the averages of Toney and Jimenez are a lot more accurate because it's obviously a bigger data size compared to Broja. So just worth noting that as well. So first up, goals per 90. Broja currently leading the way on 0.3 per 90. Obviously, Jimenez and Toney 0.2. Super close this one. And again, a bigger data sample with those two. And FPL assists, Jimenez, as you probably would expect with him being that all-round kind of player in the Wolves team, 0.3 per 90 in comparison to Toney's 0.2. So very close between the two there. Broja still to not pick up an FPL assist. Touched in the opposition box, 5.2 for Jimenez per 90, 4.2 for Toney, and 3 for Broja. So solid stats for all three of those players, but Jimenez leading the way there. And again, in the Wolves side, you probably would expect that with the recent form that they've been in. Toney, 4.2. I'm happy with that at the price range. And again, Broja, small sample size. And in the shots, this is where Toney's leading the way right now, 2.5 per 90 in comparison to Jimenez's 2.2 and Broja's 1.7. So some decent underlying stats for all three players here. Now, with Ivan Toney coming up, the big thing I want to look at here is the predicted points over the next 5 league matches. Now, you can see that below the names of the players here. You can see 21 points is predicted for Ivan Toney from game week 11 for the following 5 game weeks. Obviously, the next 4 being brilliant for Brentford. Jimenez closely behind on 20.7 and Broja on 11.6. Now, you probably would think Broja's 11.6 is a little bit low. Obviously, a lot of people thinking that he's been on phenomenal form, but it's worth mentioning with that rotation risk at Southampton, that's why with the expected minutes, a bit of a matrix there. That's why it's brought down those projected points over the next 5 game weeks. So, to conclude here, guys, with Ivan Toney, I do think that over the next 4, he is a nice pick over the next 4. Now, it's worth noting, I don't think he's been as exceptional as a lot of managers have pointed out. Per 90, his XG is only 0.23 and XA 0.27. Again, not too bad, but really not pulling up trees as a Brentford asset right now. But I think over the next 4, even the next 5, if you are looking to move away from maybe a premium asset in your team, I think Toney can definitely do a job over the next 4 or 5. He's a cheaper option than Jimenez, and while I probably would prefer Jimenez as an option going forward, I think Toney, with the underlying stats and the projected points, could definitely do a job over that period. Briefly, guys, I just wanted to quickly show you guys the transfer combinations of Ivan Toney going into Game Week 11. Another brilliant part of the Fantasy Football Fix site, just to give you a bit of an idea on where managers are going from. So I just want to quickly review some of these. Top of the pile at 35% of the transfer combinations is Antonio to Ivan Toney. Now, I understand that Antonio's fixtures coming up are very tricky, and probably with that going forward, you look at Brentford's next 4, you probably think, Toney's going to get more points. But I personally probably have to go against that pick there. I really do think that Antonio, when he's fit, with the underlying stats that he does have, provides a brilliant option. And if you have been one of those managers that's owned him from the start and built up loads of value, I think holding Antonio is probably the wiser move in the longer term, but I appreciate that managers are looking over the next 4 and seeing those brilliant fixtures for Brentford. The second most popular transfer combination is Jamie Vardy to Toney. Now, I would just say on that one, Leeds in Game Week 11, who have been very poor defensively, I think that's still a great fixture for Jamie Vardy. So just be cautious there that it could be one of those sort of fixtures where it might bite you in the coming game week, but maybe over the next 4, it may pay the dividends. But I think it's quite a brave move to move away from Jamie Vardy. And the third one I looked at is Danny Ings to 7.1% of the transfer combinations moving over to Toney. I think that is definitely the right move to make just because of Danny Ings being injured out of the Aston Villa team and the form that Villa are in. I think that's a solid move as well. So I just want to show you guys another great part of the website which shows you the transfer combinations for players. Right, guys, and next up we're going to be looking at Spurs' Son, who is potentially rising in price tonight, as we mentioned. Now, as I mentioned, guys, it's worth noting that wildcards do not contribute towards potential FPL price changes. So if there are a lot of managers right now activating the wildcards, those don't contribute towards price changes. And I do think those managers that are pulling their wildcard are most likely looking at those Spurs assets. So just worth noting that if potentially doesn't rise in price tonight, but we do have him predicted too. So why are we looking at this? Right, this is the fixture analyzer over on fantasyfootballfix.com. And the reason why I haven't decided to bring up touch maps, underlying data, graphs and stuff of Son right now is just because of the drastic change that we are going to be seeing at Spurs. Now, it's all well and good bringing up touch maps, but we are anticipating Conte to potentially go to a 3-5-2, a 3-4-3 formation. We don't know, and that's the big point of it right now. We don't know what direction we are going in with Spurs. He could play as a centre forward alongside Kane. He could operate on the left-hand side of a front three. Therefore, I believe that underlying stats, while they're going to be great indicators for us going forward, I think when we have such a drastic change of both the manager, the tactics, and just the general feel of the club, it's a bit difficult to foresee future returns from players. That's why I think looking at the fixtures is probably the best indicator of potential returns for the Spurs assets. And right now I have the attack difficulty fixture analyzer up on the screen, and Spurs right now are second best for all teams in the league right now. And as you can see there, Everton away in game week 11, which I think a lot of managers are potentially using as the opportunity to really get the first glimpse of the Conte team and then potentially make a decision after that international break going into game week 12, where they have home against Leeds, who are notoriously leaky at the back this season so far, away to Burnley, home to Brentford and home to Norwich. Now, when we look at those fixtures, guys, I really do think that it's difficult to go against a Spurs asset over this period. And as I mentioned, with Son, it's very difficult to look at the underlying stats because of what direction Conte's going. Now, right now in the season, per 90, he's got 0.46 goals per 90, 0.39 expected goals per 90, and 2.73 shots per 90. Now, if he continues with those kind of underlying stats as a baseline, I think that he is going to be a very important asset over the next 5 or 6 game weeks. Now, of course, he could go down in his underlying stats. He could even go further up. That is the problem with the predictability going forward. But I really do think that if you want to go early, I think there's no complaints about that right now with these fixtures coming up. And with Everton away in the form that they're in right now, I think there's nothing to worry about as Spurs asset owners. But for those managers, potentially like myself, that want to just get a first glimpse, looking at those fixtures from game week 12 on the screen, that really is the time to invest in these Spurs assets. Now, of course, as I mentioned, he might be rising in price tonight. So if you have 0 in the bank and you're going to be completely cut away from Son if he does rise in price and you know you want him, then it might be worth pulling the trigger tonight just to make sure that you don't miss out on the Spurs player. But if you are debating right now between Son versus Kane, it might be worth just seeing that Everton fixture, how they get on, and pulling the trigger after the international break on that Leeds fixture, which looks very tasty on paper. Okay guys, that's going to wrap up today's Fantasy Football Fix price change predictions video. I really hope you guys have taken some value away from it. And as I mentioned, guys, be sure to head over to fantasyfootballfix.com to check out the price predictor and monitor those prices closely after this video and going forward. And be sure to check out the website in general, an amazing platform to help you improve those ranks and win those important mini leagues. I've definitely used those in the past. And if you want to download the free app, it is completely free and provides you with push notifications so you don't miss a thing. All the details are in the bio. And guys, if you want to show the channel a bit of support, be sure to like the video, hit that subscribe button, and with daily videos dropping, you don't want to be missing a thing, so hit that notification bell. And I'm sure we're going to have plenty to talk about tomorrow off the back of the Europa League, so be sure to head over, same time tomorrow, guys, and we'll see you then. Cheers.